because of his job, the great thing about what he was doing back in the UK, he didn't have to go along and say, I'm giving you a notice, I don't want to work for you anymore. He could say, I'm going away for 6 months, I'm going away for 3 months, I'm going away for a year. And as long as he kept his badges up, the taxi company would have him back overnight. He could go back after 6 months, say, I want to drive, they check his badges, away he goes. So it was great for that. So Thomas is discussing with Pla various schemes they could come up with to let Thomas stay in Thailand long term. But obviously, although he wasn't a poor man, he did need to think about bringing in an income. You know, obviously, if he was going to go out there and test the waters, stay out there, and you know, if it worked out with Pla and he decided to stay out there full time, then he definitely would need an income. But yeah, he decided that he'd need some kind of a business. He wouldn't be able to work there. He didn't really want to open a little beer bar. He'd seen horror stories of guys that had fallen in love with girls, opened beer bars, and within sort of 2-3 months, all the money had gone. It's not what, I mean, it's not exactly what Pattaya needs, is it? Another beer bar. You know, so he decided that wasn't what he wanted to do. Now, if you're not familiar with Pattaya, I'll let you know a little bit of the layout. Pattaya, there's several different areas of interest. Now, the main area is the beach road. It goes from the Dolphin Roundabout on the second road. You'll come down all the way along the beach. You'll get to Walking Street. If you're in a BART bus, it will turn left there, back up to the second street, and you'll do it again. It's like a shoebox. That's one area of Pattaya. Then you've got North Pattaya. So if you went along the second road, you get to the Dolphin Roundabout, go straight over instead of turning left back down to the beach. That'll take you up to North Pattaya, which is quite nice. There's some nice soys down there with some nice apartments. But a lot of foreigners, they don't kind of head over that way. Now, another area where you do get a lot of foreigners there, but not everybody knows about the area, is a place called Jumtian. It's about 10 minutes away in a BART bus. This is a more quieter part of Pattaya, but the great thing about it is it's only 10 minutes away from the action, so you'll get a lot of older foreign guys who'll stay there in plenty of hotels and restaurants. They'll stay in Jumtian, and when they want a bit of action, they'll jump in the back of a BART bus for 20 baht. They can go to Walking Street and hang out down there and you know, fill their boots, as it were. Now, Pla and Thomas used to hang out in Jumtian. I didn't actually know where Pla lived. I think she lived more central Pattaya, but I never did find out where she lives. So Thomas always stayed at a hotel on the beach road. He changed hotels, it wasn't the same hotel. But what he used to do, he was with Pla near enough full time when he was there. She kind of lived with him in his room, and many times when they weren't doing kind of activities like you know, go-karting, something like that, they'd head over to Jumtian and they'd sit in the chairs there. You 30 baht a day, you can sit there all day and dip your feet in the water, as it were. It's very pleasant. I've done it myself many times. But it was during one of these trips to Jumtian, Thomas used to rent a motorcycle, one of these little Honda Clicks or Vibes, and you know, you could basically ride up and down the seafront in Jumtian. It's a very long beach. And you know, one of these days, Thomas and Pla, they're on the bike and they were looking for somewhere new to eat, somewhere a little bit, it was lunchtime, they wanted to find some, they just wanted to go somewhere different. They jumped on the bike, they headed down the Jumtian Beach Road. About a quarter of the way down there, not too far, there was, they turned off the beach road, they seen a restaurant, and they went to have a meal in this restaurant. Now, opposite this little Thai restaurant, there was a sign in Thai that said for lease. It was a guest house. Pla translated it for Thomas. Just to let you know, to cut the story short, basically what it was a house with 4 bedrooms, 4 double rooms, and there was a shop front downstairs, and you could have a bar there, you could have a restaurant there, whatever. Now from what I understand, to get in there, I don't know if it was key money or the lease, or I don't think you were actually purchasing the building, but to get in there, it was something like a couple of million baht, which in them days was about £50,000, $60,000 US dollars. Now, Pla kind of said to Thomas, you know, wouldn't it be great if we had that place? We could have a small restaurant downstairs. We could have a bar in the evening. There's 4 rooms. We could live in one of the rooms and we could let the other 3 rooms out. And Thomas didn't really give it a lot of thought. However, as time went on, Thomas was still thinking about his, you know, how he could make money long term, and he kind of started thinking about this guest house, and he went back there on his own. He asked around, he spoke to the agent about it, he went inside, he had a look, and he kind of liked the idea about taking over this small establishment. As I say, 4 bedrooms, him and Pla could live in one. There's a shop front downstairs. They could open a restaurant or a bar for very small money. He could have fitted it out, and he could have even had another business. He could have put a few motorbikes out the front to rent to tourists. So he was coming around to that idea. He didn't think of a better idea. So he went along to Pla and said he'd like to do it. So they went to a solicitor's, and Thomas just thought it'd be a case of handing over the money, signing the deeds, and they move in. Now, unfortunately, in Thailand, it isn't that simple. Foreigners are not allowed to own more than, I think it's 49% of property. So I don't know how it worked with this shop. I mean, I might get comments saying you're totally wrong. It doesn't work like that. But for the sake of this story, he couldn't just give the money and have everything in his name. So that's what I'm trying to say to you. So basically, he was stuck when the solicitor had the bright idea and said, well, why don't you put 51% or all of it in your girlfriend's name? And you can both work there, you can both live there. As long as you've got a visa, you're fine. If something happens in the future, you can sell it, split the money, or do whatever you want to do. Now, as far as Thomas was concerned, Pla was a good girl. He'd met her in a shopping mall. He'd been with her for several months. She hadn't done anything to raise a suspicion. The 15,000 baht a month he thought was pretty normal, and it was reasonable because she needed to send money to her family. He didn't see anything wrong with it. He didn't, unfortunately, have enough experience in Thailand to realise that a regular Thai girl wouldn't do that. So he didn't see any reason why not to. Now, he had to fund this. The only way he could fund it would be to go back and sell his house, which is what he did basically. He went back to the UK, put his house on the market. Now, those ex-council houses, government houses, they sell quite quickly for several reasons. One, they're small but they're well laid out. They normally have 3 bedrooms, a nice sized garden. They're very well built and they're not overly expensive. And I think Thomas sold his for somewhere in the neighbourhood of £130,000. He sent the money to Pla's account, and he went back over to Thailand, and they did buy, or they did take the lease on. They did manage to open this this small guest house, bar, whatever you want to call it. So we're now in a situation where Thomas has sold his house. He's come over to Thailand full time for now. They've got the venue, they've got the establishment, they've turned the 4 rooms into well, 3 of them are guest rooms, and 1 of them Pla and Thomas are going to live in. They've got to that stage. They've paid local tradesmen to develop the downstairs area into a bar. Pla's managed to bring in one of her friends. They had a small Thai kitchen. You know what it's like. It's out the back. It doesn't necessarily have to be indoors. It's a gas burner on 2 flames and a wok. A Thai person can cook a gourmet meal for 100 people. It's amazing what they can do. So they had this small Thai kitchen. They had the bar. It was open. It was in a fairly decent location along in Jungtin. It wasn't in a real busy area, but Thomas thought he could get it. He knew how to use Facebook. He knew how to do online promotion. He had friends in the UK that were now starting to come over, and he thought he could make a go of it. So they managed to get the whole place up and running, and they started getting customers in, and it was going quite well. They weren't going to become rich overnight, but you know, they were having guests. All the rooms were full. I think they were charging 400 or 500 baht a night. They were renting the rooms out. They were having people come in and have drinks earlier in the evening. They were doing, you know, a dozen meals at dinner time and lunchtime. Throughout the day they were doing snacks. So it was okay. It was okay. Thomas was happy. He was with Pla. He could see the money coming in, and they were doing okay. Now, Thomas hadn't totally tied up all his affairs in the UK, so he had to go back. And now, bearing in mind, everything at the Pattaya end is in Pla's name. Now, something I have to bring into the mix at this point. was Pla was having a frequent visitor to the, let's call it the bar. She was having a frequent visitor to the bar. She was having a young man that had visited her who was apparently a brother. That's how the story went. Now, this brother would come down. He'd stay in one of the rooms. They didn't charge him anything. He'd eat there. He'd drink there. He'd go back to wherever he comes from. But apparently, he was Pla's brother. That's what Thomas thought. If you ask me, I won't say anything at this point. But anyway, he'd noticed Pla's brother was hanging around, and he had to go back to the UK and tie up his affairs. I mean, he'd sold his house. He'd transferred the money over. They'd bought the property, and it was going quite well, but he had some other things to do because it was starting to go well. You know, obviously he was going to stay in Thailand, so he had to tie everything up. He went back to the UK. Now, strangely, after he'd been in the UK for about a week, he'd been Skyping Pla as usual. She'd been talking to him. Everything's going well. My brother's here helping me out at the moment. Don't worry, you do what you got to do, and then I'll be here waiting for you in Pattaya. Now, about 5 or 6 days went by, and for some reason, Thomas contacted Pla by Skype, as he always does, same sort of time, and no answer. She didn't pick up. Very strange. First time she'd not picked up, actually. Tried her again an hour later, nothing. An hour later, nothing. Didn't really think too much of it. Probably thought, well, she's busy in the bar. She must be tied up. I'll try tomorrow. So he tried her earlier in the day. It was morning in the UK when he tried, which would have been about 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Thailand. No answer. Again in the evening, no answer. Just couldn't get hold of her. Called her mobile on WhatsApp, line, no answer. So he thought, well, I'll call her regular Thai number. It's going to cost, but I need to speak to her. Rang, nothing, no answer. So he's starting to get a little bit, let's not say suspicious, but he's starting to get a little bit anxious. That's the word. That's a good word. He was getting anxious. What's happened? Has she been in an accident? Has somebody done something to her? Has anything else happened? So basically, Thomas had pretty much finished what he had to do. He booked the first available flight, and he headed out to Pattaya. Now, when he got to his bar, there was something about it. It looked different. He couldn't understand what it was, but it wasn't. There was something he couldn't put his finger on. Pla wasn't there, but the Thai brother, along with a couple of friends. Now, they refused to let Thomas into the building. They basically told him, if you don't disappear, you're going to be in a lot of bother. And to cut a long story short, what happened was the brother wasn't a brother. It was Pla's long-term boyfriend or husband. She'd invited him down. He'd put the thought into her brain and said, why don't we take over? We don't need this Thomas guy. It's all in your name. And that's what they did. They basically cut Thomas out of the whole story. Now, Thomas, as you can imagine, he was absolutely devastated, gutted beyond belief. He checked into a hotel on the 12th floor on Pattaya Beach Road. Later that day, he had nowhere else to stay. He obviously couldn't stay there. He knew, he'd put two and two together. He realised what had happened. He sold his house, which was every penny he had in the world, and he bought this establishment with Pla. He probably had £10,000 left to his name, that was all. Yes, he could go back to the UK and work, but savings, he'd ploughed it all into this bar, and now Pla had basically kicked him out, and she was living with her Thai boyfriend, even though she was a so-called nice girl from a shopping mall. Now, unfortunately, at this point, Thomas took a decision that I wouldn't have taken. I would have got back on a plane to the UK. I would have rented myself a small apartment. I would have worked 100 hours a week just to take my mind off things, and I would have started again. Unfortunately, Thomas, he was too devastated. He didn't take this decision. What he did decide to do was join the Pattaya Flying Club. And if you've never heard of the Pattaya Flying Club, it's nothing to do with aviation. It's basically when guys, Western guys in particular, they come to Pattaya, they blow their money, they have all their money stolen by a girlfriend, something like that, and they end up with Pattaya with absolutely nothing, potless, penniless. They've got nothing else they can do. They don't even have the money for the ticket, so they take a dive off a balcony and they basically kill themselves. And this is what happened. He joined the Pattaya Flying Club. He drank half a bottle of whiskey, leapt off his balcony, and that was the end of Thomas. So at this point, I don't know. I was very sad to hear what had happened to Thomas, but it's not the first time I've heard a story like this. I knew Thomas very well. He was a very nice man, very trusting, very decent guy by everybody else's standards. Pla, she'd pretty much wound him round her finger. She was left with this bar with her Thai boyfriend. They must have been very, very happy. I don't know. I didn't go to the bar and find out what happened to Pla and her boyfriend. I wasn't interested at all. I was just very sad to lose a very good friend, Thomas. As I say, he was a great guy. He didn't deserve that, but unfortunately he took a very bad decision. As I say, I wouldn't have taken a decision like that. And this is something that happens quite often in Pattaya. So guys, if you go to Pattaya, let's end on a positive note. If you go to Pattaya, enjoy what it's got to offer. It's a great place. You can get what you want. But do think long and hard when you meet that nice girl and you decide to make any life-changing decisions.